The Voynich manuscript is the Elvis of weird books.
In one of Yale's libraries, there's a book carbon dated to the 14th century that has never been translated. It's called the Voynich manuscript, and it contains, you've got these diagrams of strange plants, bathing women, and this interesting language that follows all the rules of a language, but is not decipherable. And because it's a difficult problem, many people consider it to be a fake. This book was mysteriously acquired in Rome in 1912 during one of the lowest periods of papal power. And we know it once belonged to Pope Rodolph II. I'm pretty sure this book came from the Vatican Library. So, what was the Catholic Church doing in the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries? Well, for one, they were trying to convert China. Which is interesting because there is the Chinese theory, that this is an attempt by Westerners to write down Chinese, which is otherwise a system of more than 10,000 pictographs. Voynich manuscript words have a beginning, middle, and end, very similar to Chinese. So let's swing back to the missionary efforts. Matteo Ricci was a Jesuit. Jesuits are known for being epically smart, learning languages very quickly, and using technology to spread the word. When Matteo Ricci entered China, he looked for technology that he thought that Chinese were lacking in so that he could then give it to them. In particular, he identified astrology, mathematics, and language as his focuses. And in 1605, he published The Miracle of Western Letters to bypass the difficult system of Chinese characters. The Chinese were like, nah. By the Ming Dynasty, the Chinese had extensive libraries and vast amounts of knowledge, which means we should discuss the Bensao Ganmu. It's translated as the Compendium of the Materia Medica of China. It is the life work of one of the greatest scholars the world has ever seen. It was also published in 1596 when the Jesuits were in China. If Jesuits were trying to teach people back in Rome how to speak Chinese, translating some books would make sense. And one of the greatest mysteries of the Voynich manuscript are the plants, which are kind of considered wild and unknown and never before seen. So let's compare them side by side. Do these look similar? Or these? This one's a stretch. I can kind of see this. This one's my favorite. Well, okay, maybe the plants, but what about the bathing women? Do not underestimate the scholarship of Li Shizhen, because he definitely has an entire book on the 43 different types of medicinal water, including leaky roof water, to be used sparingly. And that looked familiar. But why all the naked women? These were celibate men. Over time, the Jesuits actually began to respect what the Chinese knew and started trying to bring home that knowledge. The author of the China Illustrata also owned the Voynich manuscript, and for his research, he read this earlier Jesuit work, The Medicine in Seneca, whose early chapters were on how to speak Chinese, and included a pronunciation guide with a beginning, middle, and end to each word. It was a good source. And in this book, there were some 6-point star diagrams that looked familiar. If your goal was to disprove my theory, you would go and learn Chinese from this text, and then use it to try to read the Voynich manuscript. If you hate on my theory in the comments, this is what I will suggest you do. If this theory is correct, it centers on the premise that Westerners forgot that they learned something from someone other than themselves. And I don't think I'm going to need to bring out Occam's razor to see if that parses.